Hi, I'm Mina Malik Hussain and you're watching The Coffee Table, and today I'm full of energy. Because I can never resist making terrible dad jokes when I'm on this set. I'm really excited today because today we are going to be talking about the mind and the power of the mind, and we're talking about energy, and we're talking about healing, and we're talking to two fascinating women who are doing such interesting work when it comes to all of these things. And I'm particularly excited to discuss something that's quite new to me, and I'm sure to you all as well. But I don't want to give too much away. So I am delighted to welcome today, remotely on the coffee table, Nazia Zainab Sheikh, who is a Theta healer at the Third Space, and Shehrbano Salahuddin, who is the CEO and creative director of Braencandy. Hello, ladies, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Mina.
It's wonderful.
Hey, Mina, how are you?
I'm well. How are you? Both of you. Tucked away safely. Away from me.
Good. Yeah, good. From a safe...
I know, this is such a social show, and I'm really missing having sort of, people. And, I love, and I was talking to Shehrbano, and I was just like, what a crystal, I want to know everything. So let's just sort of dive right in with the crystals. So Shehrbano, tell me about Braencandy. What does Braencandy do?
So Braencandy is kind of constantly evolving, but essentially what it is a kind of brand that's focused around metaphysics, healing, and creativity. And we basically want to make people aware of the resources we have, like naturally, that are available to us that we can use to heal ourselves, and then also the power of like your own mind and your own belief system that can kind of like shape your reality, right? And like help you create the life that you want. So yeah, and then aside from that, it's also just really focused on like creativity and like design and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's right now we basically we started off kind of trying to make people aware of crystals and what they are and how they work. Yeah. And we're kind of making jewelry right now, but like the main thing is to kind of like make people aware of their own power. And
that's fascinating. That sounds
crystals
really...
are kind of a gateway into that. So it's not really just about crystals.
Okay, fascinating. Now we're going to come back to that in just a minute. But Zainab, tell me about the work that you do at the Third Space. You're a Theta healer, which is not just a really cool sounding thing. But tell me about the Third Space, and what do you do over there as in your capacity as a Theta healer?
So the Third Space is my platform for Theta healing. Yeah. And initially I started off, just working with family and friends when I qualified as a Theta healer. And by the end of last year, I had started like an official Theta healing practice. And so what we, should I tell you a little bit about Theta healing and what it is?
Yes, please do.
Theta healing is it's an energy modality. It's a healing modality, and it's centered around unconditional love for the creator and the creator's unconditional love for you. And it's centered again around teaching you to experience your self-worth, teaching you to experience unconditional love for yourself, and just finding comfort, peace, and confidence within yourself, within your skin. And once you learn to feel those things for yourself, you can reflect them in every aspect of your life. And then you're able to sort of reflect those in your relationships also, because you're able to feel the same kind of empathy, unconditional love, and contentment in your relationships as well. Once you learn to experience them for yourself. Right. So I conduct the Theta healing sessions at the Third Space, and these days it's all been obviously the way this show is at a very safe distance. So all the Theta healing sessions, so there's audio calls.
Oh, so you don't have to be physically present to do it.
No, you don't. You don't have to be physically present. My own Theta healer before I sort of became a practitioner, my own Theta healer is in London. So I had all my sessions with her over the phone.
Wow. So if we kind of go back to the basics, Zainab, what is energy? Because I think that the work that both of you are doing has a lot to do with harnessing energy and sort of creating access to energy. But what would be like a way to describe energy to a layperson? Like, what kind of energy are we talking about?
Okay, so, and you know, we are made of energy, right? And in energy, there's your mind, there's the body, there's the soul. You know, you have your heart, which is a very big part of your energy. So it, you know, and again in Theta healing, it's about cleansing all that energy, removing anything that is keeping you from becoming the best version of yourself. Right? So you remove all limiting beliefs that all of us pick up while growing up as we experience life. We all pick up some limiting beliefs or the other. What they're focused around, or, you know, where you have the greatest limits for, you know, in your belief system, that obviously varies for everyone. You know, it could be around work, it could be around relationships. So it's about, Theta healing is about cleansing that energy, learning to recognize those patterns, connect the dots, and then releasing it.
Oh, so it's a sort of 3 process as well. Ooh, that's I love learning new things. So Shehrbano, tell me, again, sort of like going back to the basics as it were, what are crystals?
So essentially crystals, like to go back to your initial question, which is what is energy? Energy is like essentially the building block of the universe, right?
Right.
And what we know from science and like physics and quantum mechanics is that nothing rests, everything moves, everything is vibrating at a certain frequency. So crystals are essentially the purest form of matter in the universe, because all their like tiny little atoms and tiny little molecules are arranged in like an absolutely symmetrical pattern, like a repetitive one, right? So, they're the only form of matter that has that kind of structure, internal structure. So because of that, it's super cool. And all of them have different shapes and different ways that they link together, and that determines their properties and stuff as well.
Yes.
But essentially because of that like structure that they have, their frequency is really high. So if you say like our bodies, for example, vibrate at about 6 to 8 hertz, okay?
Right.
A piece of clear quartz vibrates at 32,000 hertz.
What?
So it's essentially,
That's
so when
a massive difference. That's like a cycle and a Ferrari.
It's crazy. Like I'm going to show you, like this little guy.
Yeah.
In fact, what they say is it vibrates so fast that it's actually not a solid, it's like a liquid or something that's just vibrating really fast. Like they're really crazy if you get into them. It's like mind-blowing. But basically what happens is that when they come into your energy field, because they're vibrating at such a high frequency, your vibration tries to kind of match their vibration. So it starts to move around blocked energy. That's within your body, and also like what's really cool is how we're kind of drawn to them and how we kind of select them as well, because you're naturally drawn to crystals that have the energy that is lacking in your own energetic body. So if you know, like I'm a very hard person, I'll be attracted to very soft stones. So like we always see with men, they are always drawn to pink stones because they have that energy kind of like blocked within them. So that's kind of how they work.
That's fascinating. So it's like you're moving areas low vibration are then seeking higher vibration. So it's kind of like almost like an osmosis kind of thing of energy, an osmosis of energy. That's so fascinating. Okay, we're going to take.
Sorry. So what's also really cool is that they take like millions of years to form under the earth, right? So they have like the magnetism of the earth kind of within them. So they actually essentially act like magnets, kind of pushing and pulling like trapped energy in our chi, essentially, what the Chinese call it.
Yes. And it's really fascinating that this sort of energy goes across a lot of cultures. So like you said, there's the chi, and then there's also the sort of the Buddhist and the Hindu idea of energy. And then the Malay also have it. So it's really interesting to me to see how this is obviously a kind of Asian adjacent idea and really ancient beliefs of how energy works in the universe. So this is not something, it's not new to anybody, because a lot of the times I think people have this idea that, it's a sort of new age, frou-frou, woo-woo thing to do, but actually this is a lot of ancient wisdom that we are almost in a way perhaps rediscovering. So, Zainab, tell me, oh, sorry, you were saying, Shehrbano, I was like,
I was saying, yeah, sorry, I was saying exactly what you were saying. It's essentially, it's not new at all. It's essentially just ancient knowledge being revived, because this is something that has been, if you look at the Sumerians, if you look at the Mayans, if you look at the Egyptians, if you look at the, I don't know, the first like Hindu civilizations, they all have some, like Atlantis, if you believe in that, but like they all have some kind of connection, very, very pure connection to the divine, and they all have some, every culture has some relationship with stones also, you know, so I think they're meant to help us. Like I really believe that, you know, like everything God has made has a purpose. Like every herb, every plant has some cure, right? And I think plants are like physical, like a physical way of treating yourself. And I think the purpose of stones, they're not just meant to be looked at and like made into decor and stuff. Their purpose is healing your energetic body and kind of, you know, filling in the gaps where you're lacking.
I think
but at
really
the same
useful.
time, you know, it's not something that, you know, okay, oh, this stone is going to magically change your life. You know, essentially, they hold memory, and they can only amplify what's already inside you and what you put into them. So it really comes down to your beliefs and all of that.
Wow, I want to ask you more memory here because my mind is being blown in a really amazing way. So Zainab, is then Theta energy, is Theta healing kind of harnessing, is Theta like a different kind of energy or another kind of level of energy?
Yeah. Okay. So theta is essentially, it's a brain wave, right? And as humans, we experience a number of different brain waves, right? There's beta, there's alpha, theta, delta. You know, different sort of brain waves, and they all change according to what you're, you know, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're doing. Theta is a state. It can be reached through like a deep meditative state, and it's the most relaxed state that you can be in before you sleep. Like, you know, being awake, this is the most relaxed state you can be in. And what happens in that state is that basically you learn to switch off your senses from the outside world. And you learn to connect.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you here because this is a very cliffhanger moment, and I want a very quick break and leave the audience sort of dying to know to find out what happens next. So stay with us, and we will be back in 1 second. Hi, welcome back to the coffee table. We're having a fantastically mind-blowing conversation with Theta healer Nazia Zainab Sheikh and crystal energy expert Shehrbano Salahuddin. And I was just talking to Zainab before the break about what it means to be in a Theta state. So Zainab, please continue. So you were saying that it is this meditative state that the body goes into in the Theta state. And it's sort of like the freest that your mind is at any given point during the day.
It's the most relaxed state that you can possibly achieve while being awake. Because, you know, any deeper and you're asleep. So it's the most relaxed state that you can achieve while being awake. And what happens in the Theta state is that you learn to disconnect your senses from the outside world, and you start to take the cues from within. You know, so you begin to tune in. And Theta is like a gateway to learning, memory, intuition. So, you know, consciously, we're not used to functioning at that level, you know, at a conscious level. And through Theta, you can also access your subconscious mind. You know, when you're in that state and you start to connect with it, you can start to access your subconscious mind. And, you know, your subconscious mind is where all your stuff is, you know, like all the limiting beliefs, any troubled history, any negative patterns, you know, issues with the self-worth, self-love, all of that is sort of tucked away in your subconscious mind. So while you're in the Theta stage, you can actually access all that.
Wow. And I suppose you think that the body doesn't naturally, doesn't know how to access this state because it's like is it a protective thing that the mind does?
Yeah, so that's why it's called the subconscious mind, right? Consciously, we're sort of aware of everything that's happening around us, and we have, we can logically sort of explain everything to ourselves.
Yes.
But the subconscious is a very interesting part of us because, it's not just where all these negative limiting beliefs are, but just like the way, you're having a conversation with me right now, but if you were sipping a cup of tea,
Yes.
You won't forget how to drink your tea because subconsciously, we train ourselves. This is how kids learn their ABC. Or when you're walking and you're eating a sandwich, you can do both things because subconsciously know what actions follow, what thought processes follow, right?
Yes.
So it's and that is why if I may explain a little bit more about theta healing, we explore the subconscious mind on many different levels,
right?
And a lot of it has to do with our core, and the core is formed between age 0 to 7, and then your teenage years and your early adulthood are very impressionable also.
Okay.
But that's when your personality is really formed, where your opinions about yourself, what you think you're capable of, or what is good, what is bad. So a lot of stuff around your circumstances, your family, your parenting, the parenting that you receive, your upbringing. All of that just gets sort of tucked into your subconscious mind, where you
and
form
this is the core.
The rest of your life. That's where you take your cues from. So, for example, if something for you, if something is a trigger, suppose you have troubled history with anger, right? As a child, you may have formed a response, or you may have decided that actually people get angry with you because you're not worthy of unconditional love. So for the rest of your life, every time you experience anger, that will be your first instant reaction. That's your trigger. That's how you respond to anger.
And because it's subconscious, you don't even know why you're doing it. All you know is that you're having this feeling.
Exactly. And that's where theta healing comes in. So, we connect the dots subconsciously, and then we release them. And in that meditative state, you are also able to replace them. You replace them with empowering positive beliefs.
Now, I want to kind of come back. I want to hop back to this just a minute, but I want to ask Shehrbano that a lot of work with crystals is also about setting intentions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
So how do you do that? Because in a way, I find these kind of links, because we're talking about energy and accessing energy different ways, and it seems like the mind plays a huge part in this, clearly.
Yeah.
So in crystal work, you have to set an intention. And what does that mean?
So essentially what it is, intention with, as you know, with anything is kind of like what sets things into motion, right? If you set the intention that I want to do well at this business, or like whatever it is, you kind of have to have that within you. With crystals, it's kind of like, we call it programming them.
Okay.
Because like I said before about the memory factor, right?
Yes.
You're essentially, everything is vibration, everything is thought, right? Everything is controlled by that. So like, if you believe that, then you can essentially put your thoughts into that crystal, right? So like,
so is that because you're kind of trying to align your vibrations? So the vibration of your thought is kind of then meeting the vibration of the crystal?
You're basically sending your thought energy into that crystal, and it's holding that vibration and amplifying it. So if I have anger problems, and I get like a rose quartz, for example, which is supposed to calm you down and stuff, and I connect with this rose quartz, I meditate with it, and I'm like, and I just put it in, I charge it up with just like love energy, right? Like how Zainab was saying, this unconditional love, putting it into that, and then kind of setting the intention and programming it with the fact that, I want to be more less angry, or like I want to have control over my anger, and then you carry that around with you, and that vibration is essentially with you. But and it's also, and what I had never I had never really read up on theta healing, but when you told me that you were getting a theta healer, I looked into it, and what I found really cool about it was that it's also this kind of unpacking your belief systems, right? And then kind of letting that like natural flow happen. And it's kind of what we teach also, just in a different way. It's kind of just empowering people, dismantling things that you've always believed, questioning yourself as to like why you've believed them, and basically becoming hyper self-aware. And sorry, I went a little off topic, but to get back to the intention thing.
Yes.
But back to the intention thing, it's essentially like putting that thought into that crystal, and that crystal, because it holds memory and because it has such a high vibration, is amplifying that thought.
So even the rose quartz that you just showed me is not very big. It's about sort of, that big. So even a crystal that's just that big can make that kind of difference. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you have to like, I mean, I can't say that like a crystal, you're going to take it and it's going to change your life, but what I think the way it works is on a much more like subtle level, because what happens is, it also, if you don't believe in it, which a lot of people don't, like, it also kind of acts as a reminder for you, right? To like behave in a certain way if you're carrying it around with you and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the size doesn't really matter. Like it's more about, it's like, I think a lot of people are very like systematic and clinical with the way that you're supposed to use rocks, like, maine birth sign ke saath use karne hai, maine, what is my star sign, and this, I can't use this rock. But I frankly think that's all just superstition. And like, every crystal is different. Every human being is different. How it's going to impact you is going to be completely different from how it's going to impact someone else. And what we believe in our ethos, and what it really comes down to is that you have to, the crystal, and like whichever one you feel connected to is usually the one you need. And we've seen that happen with like multiple clients, with the fact they'll be like, okay, like, I don't know, I've never selected a rock before, like, how do I do it? So what we tell them always is like, don't think about your star sign, because first of all, you're not just one star sign. Your birth chart can have up to like 12 signs. So, it's silly to to just that. Yeah, you have your moon sign, you have your rising sign, you have like all sorts of signs moving around in this. But,
that is true.
Yeah, so like I'm not just in Aries, right? I have a lot of Libra in my chart, etc., etc. So like,
I have a Virgo moon. I looked this up and I was I'm a complex being.
It's kind of like a blueprint for your whole personality, right? And then I'm sure your experiences and your upbringing kind of shapes it a little more.
So it's also, it sounds like you have to also kind of trust that when you're picking a crystal that's right for you.
And what we're kind of trying to teach people is to trust their intuition and be like, because they'll be like, what stone is right for me? We'll be like, look at the pictures, see which one you visually feel drawn to, and then check the properties. And it usually always lines up with what they're looking for. Like the other day, a client came to me, she was like, I don't know how to select a stone. So I was like, just look at the pictures and send me which ones you feel drawn to. And she sent me back pictures of all our blue stones. Because the color is super important. Color energy also gets involved in it. Because it comes down to the colors of your energy centers, where they're imbalanced and stuff. So she sent me back pictures of all these blue stones. And then I was like, okay. And, I was like, okay, cool. And then she asked me, she was like, so which stone is good for thyroid? And blue stones are good for thyroid.
Because this is that chakra.
Energy center.
Yes.
So it like always, it's really amazing how it kind of works that way. And it just shows you how at the end of the day, your subconscious kind of knows what's best for you at the end of the day.
That's really fascinating to me. And that's, I feel like, the power of the mind, and it's on so many levels. And Zainab, Shehrbano mentioned belief. And do you think that theta healing also is actually truly effective if the person who is wanting to be in that state really believes that this is going to help?
Well, of course. How quickly, you experience a shift in your energy, how quickly you're able to sort of release those beliefs and feel the power of the newly instilled beliefs in you. Your faith does have a lot to do with it, right? And everything sort of moves more efficiently and smoothly when you believe the practice. But having said that, especially in Lahore, since there's nobody else who's practicing theta healing at the moment, so there are a lot of new people who I've worked with, right? And people come into it sort of a little bit wary, not knowing what to expect. But I've never had an experience where I've had a theta healing session with someone and they haven't felt a difference, or they haven't felt a change. Or, something in their energy will shift, will change. So yes, you can probably gain more benefit from it, and you can experience a quicker shift for yourself when you go into it with a certain amount of faith and belief. But just that release on its own and meditating, being in a theta state, it definitely makes a difference. Just meditation on its own, even, just meditation as a practice, it's like hitting the restart button, because our natural state is that of well-being and being connected to the Creator. And just to peace, right? That's our natural state. That's what we're naturally supposed to experience on a regular basis.
So then what happens? So for example, I assume that you're small, when you're a child, then you are the closest to that state. And then as we get older, what happens to distance us from that natural state of well-being?
There's a lot of noise of the outside world, right? Everyone has opinions. Everyone has their own beliefs. So as a child, you are closest to vibrating at that frequency, of your connection with the Creator and experiencing unconditional love and your self-worth. But like a sponge, you're also like a sponge. So you're also picking up on a lot of beliefs from around you. You're picking up on the energy around you. So then that's coming back to the core again, our core is formed at a very young age. So one, we're very tuned into our energies, and two, we're also susceptible to the energy around us and picking up, and
so that would mean your family was raising you, so children are picking up their energy as well. And if that's not a very positive or harmonious energy, then it is affecting the kiddos in that environment as well.
And also, Mina, I mean, if you look at, I'm a Muslim, I'm a practicing Muslim, right? And if you look into our religion, it's so beautiful, the connection between all this energy and healing and the connection with religion. We are advised to raise our children for the first 7 years with extreme love and care, right? They have to be treated like they are, just the center of all your unconditional love. And then 7 to 14 is where the disciplining begins, So you discipline them from a place where they want, they want to feel that unconditional love experience from the age of 0 to 7. And then 14 to 21 is when you start to treat them like your advisors. You stimulate them mentally. So this is a religious guideline as to how to raise children. And it's so beautiful every time I come across these things. And like you said, this isn't something new. Energy is not something new. And if you look into it, every religion, every philosophy, every form of healing, it's all about experiencing your alignment. It's about experiencing that high frequency of unconditional love and just experiencing that connection with the Creator. And that's what namaz is essentially supposed to be as well, right? You're supposed to connect.
And it's about all of these sort of belief systems are supposed to kind of move us toward a more loving existence. And on that philosophical note, we're going to take a very quick break and come back. Hi, welcome back to the coffee table. We're having a fascinating conversation with Theta healer Nazia Zainab Sheikh and crystal expert Shehrbano Salahuddin. And goosebumps today on the show. So Shehrbano, tell me, you and I were talking about this, and there's a thing called the quantum structure of reality. And since we've been talking about sort of the universe and energy and how this seems to be like this primal force, and it's sort of us connecting with that really kind of, I don't know, like life force, life energy is, tell me about this.
Tell you about the life force or the quantum structure?
Yeah, well, how we construct reality and the energy has in that.
So, okay, essentially, again, it comes down to your belief, right? Whatever, and it's tied into the law of attraction. Whatever I believe is possible is something that I'm going to attract into my experience.
Right. It's all about what your mind thinks can be done.
Whatever your mind, all our limits are in our head. You know, like it's not something, and like I think this is something that I actually, like I always kind of knew, I was always interested in, but it was mine and my partner's experience with a rock that kind of led us to be like, okay, this is how it works, and like we have to tell people about it.
What? So you actually had a sort of life-altering experience with a rock, and now you have to tell me about this.
Sorry, what? I couldn't hear you.
I was saying that you and your partner at Braencandy, you actually had you had an experience with a rock.
Yeah, that was how it was kind of born. It was like I feel like the universe kind of brought us together, gave us this experience, and was like, now do this work. So fluoride is known as the genius stone. It's a super mental stone. It's all about kind of finding your life's purpose and connecting the dots and et cetera, et cetera. And essentially we were playing around with this crystal one day, like, you know, playing with like light and just like messing around with it. And we just got like obsessed with it to the point where like we couldn't stop looking at it and we couldn't figure out like why. And I know it sounds completely mad, but you know, we just got really obsessed with it. And suddenly after like hours of like talking about our lives and like figuring out what we wanted to do, just like we realized that the way we were behaving was like precisely like what this crystal's vibration was, and it was like kind of like influencing us in this like strange way. And like ever since that moment we've just been, I feel like, I don't know, we kind of just had like
quite honestly
downloads.
It's like the vibrations aligned and kind of pushed you there.
Yes, and it was kind of like you know, one of those moments in movies where you like understand everything and you're like, oh.
It's a eureka moment, and it's really interesting. Even in all kinds of thought and academics and whatever, and the whole idea of a eureka moment is that moment of almost like revelation, isn't it? That you're like, oh, it's all come togetger.
Moment. It was a shared revelation, which was super cool because then we didn't think we were nuts. It was like you're also going through this, so that's great.
So now tell me about energy.
Yeah, so I think basically that was what kind of gave us the confidence to try this stuff out, right? We were like, okay, let's just believe that this is possible and just like do these things. And then things kind of just started happening. They started falling into place, you know, mashallah, everything happened the way we wanted it to and all. But essentially what it comes down to is like the quantum structure. Essentially everything is light and sound, right? If you break it down to like simple.
And this is science.
Light, sound, color.
Right. And this is science. This is not sort of alternate ideas about stuff. This is science. This is quantum physics.
Quantum physics gets really weird when you like think about it, which means that reality is really weird.
It is. Isn't it amazing? Like even just the dimensions. Now I'm asking about life energy also, because you talked about how energy gets blocked. And how does that happen? Like what does it mean that energy is blocked in you?
So you essentially have your different energy centers, right? You have your root one, and they all resonate with different colors and different sound frequencies. Your energy flows in a kind of elliptical form through your body. It comes in through your feet and goes out like up your head and then goes down.
It's
so
like
that's
this.
your like flow.
Right.
Yeah. So when you have blockages, which are usually always emotional blockages, right? Or some kind of belief pattern, belief system that you have, that's blocking the energy either slows down in a certain energy center, or it like completely stops. And that kind of so emotions, the reason they're called emotions, which is energy in motion, essentially. So it's something that has to keep flowing, you know, like so basically every time you feel something, it's something that you need to kind of meditate on, be aware of, and then heal it and then move on, right? That's like your emotional kind of energy. So when it gets blocked, it causes disease, which is actually dis-ease, which is your like when
your
just
body
not
is just not feeling right and manifesting in a lot of different ways. So I think it's really interesting that if the flow of energy is from feet to your head, essentially energy's last point of exit is up here. So Zainab and that's where the theta, you know, waves are happening. Everything is just being rooted through your head.
And also, I mean, that's your crown chakra, right? That's your
Yes.
connection with the creator.
So that's where your third eye is then as well.
Your chakra is in the forehead, and then the
Okay.
crown chakra is right at the top of your crown,
Okay,
right? And
yeah.
that's your connection with the creator. Yeah.
That's so fantastic. It's like we're like beaming energy out into the universe, out of our heads, like little wands. Or like little magnets even. You know, this is like we've got these two poles in this. Oh, you can see how like my mind is now sort of running in a lot of different directions. So, and now this is a question like either of you can sort of jump in to answer. That we talked about how this is a sort of journey to self-enlightenment is a kind of 3-step one. So we start with mindfulness, and then we go to reflection, and we go to acceptance. And Zainab, you talked about how you release certain things. How does that work? Sort of releasing messages in your mind or beliefs that you want to let go of. And of course, I mean beliefs in a very broad sense. Like let's say low self-esteem or feelings that you are not lovable, let's say. So how, obviously I know that you can't really say that, oh, you just open your hand and out it goes. But I'm just curious that what is release?
So that is where the theta state comes in, right? And like I explained that, once you're in a theta state, you disconnect from, the external sort of stimulations, and you connect within.
Exactly.
And you can actually connect with your subconscious mind. Yeah. You go deep, and then you have access to your intuition, to your memory, to your learning, that other side of you that you are consciously switched off from. But it's observing everything. It's recording everything. So,
and at this point, I want to interrupt, sorry, but this is not hypnosis, right?
No,
this has nothing to do with hypnosis, just to kind of clarify.
No. Yeah, it's not hypnosis, and also it's a deep meditative state that you enter, right? The difference with hypnosis, like hypnosis is usually practiced through therapy, and again, it's a conscious state where you're very responsive to sort of suggestions and etc. Right? In theta healing, yes, you can access your subconscious mind the same way that you do, even in a state of hypnosis. But while you're in that theta state, it's about, one, making that connection with the creator in that state. You connect with the creator. And then there's a concept of complete free will. Even as a theta practitioner, everything is put across to you, whatever is coming up in the energy,
so it's really you're in control in a way of that process. So then release.
Yes.
So then what do you, release means that you are then kind of in your subconscious mind letting go of the things that you need to let go. So it's like,
see, it's one thing identifying a trigger. Like it's one thing identifying a trigger and then just living with it forever. That, okay, fine, this thing triggers me, or that thing triggers me, or there are certain kinds of people that rub me the wrong way, or
so now you're you've sort of reached a state of like, know that this is it, like you've accepted that this is.
That in that theta state, you connect the dots as to why that belief has been formed. Right? The moment that it was formed, right? You go back to that moment because the subconscious is recording everything. So you essentially know everything about yourself.
Wow.
We are just not consciously able to connect to all those memories, but they're all there. So, in that state, you go back to when that belief was formed, what something made you feel. And of course, like we spoke a lot about the core, right? And your childhood, you address all these issues, knowing and believing that obviously in most situations, best intentions were involved.
Right.
Parents were trying to do their best.
Of course.
Everyone around you had good intentions. But you don't deny the fact that certain things made you feel a certain way. So you accept. You fully accept, you wholly accept, and then you decide that, okay, now I no longer want to experience this. So you ask for it to be released from the subconscious mind.
I love that. I love the idea of setting your own self free. And I love the idea that with the work that you do, Zainab, and the work that Shehrbano you do as well, it's taking so much love back into your own hands and sort of giving it to yourself and I feel like it's such a sort of healthy and wonderful and encouraging and hopeful way to kind of, live our best lives and be our best selves. And I really like the idea of connecting to everybody in a loving way. And thank you so much, both of you, for being on the show. It was really, I don't want to say enlightening because it sounds really sort of serious, but to me it really was. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. Braencandy and The Third Space are very much around on social media if you want to look them up and learn more about the wonderful work that they do. And thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time on The Coffee Table. Bye now.